working, I'd like to invite Jeff up to do some wrap-up.
I just want to talk a little bit about the Industry Leaders Fund for a minute, and those of you who are at the awards night will know we introduced 20 new scholars, and it's very pleasing to see a large number of those here today, and thank you for your interest, and we hope to see you at more functions. So that brings us up to 142. Next year is our 10th awards ceremony, and it'll be, for that we want to mark it as a big one. So we will probably open up the purse strings a bit. We'll probably look for larger numbers than 20, and we don't ever set targets for this because as we heard in recruitment, you just don't select people in a hurry, you select them for the right quality and the right reasons, and we're not going to water down the quality of this network. And you all know that this network is quite exclusive. You have satisfied, if you're a scholar of the Industry Leaders Fund, the same criteria in leadership as a Rhodes Scholar. Pretty serious benchmark. You have been successful in business in South Australia, and that's even harder than Queensland, Bruce. And you've also studied at one of the world's top business schools. So a pretty unique combination, and we're not going to water that down. So we will make sure that we get quality applicants. But what I would ask is the board will be expecting me to achieve a higher benchmark, and I'm asking for your help to help me find and really encourage good people to apply. There's a pile of brochures out there. I'd encourage you to take one or two with you and pass them on to people and ask them to give me a call. So that's the really interesting thing I think about next year. The less good news is that the value of our investments have dropped. Everybody knows the stock market goes up, the stock market goes down. It has gone down a bit. The value of our investments has dropped by about $500,000 in the last 8 weeks. But the good news is it's still worth $10.9 million, and that is over 114% of the indexed value. For those of you who've been with the fund for a while know we started with $8 million. Each quarter we index by CPI. That's the real value we want to maintain. We're 114% over the real value. So our long-term sustainability is still very much preserved. There's one thing I'd like you to do before you leave, and I will say a couple more things before I conclude. One is I'd like you to fill out the survey forms. Susie has surveys, and I'll give those out to you shortly before you leave. If you'd fill those out, it'll only take you 30 seconds or so, but it just gives us some information and gives the committee some information so we can make sure that future training is in tune with what your needs are. It's very pleasing to see all of the scholars wearing their pins today, and I'm very pleased that you remembered to bring them along or maybe found an alternate source. And I'd be even more pleased if I walked down the street and saw you wearing them during the daytime. But particularly at these functions, it's a great thing to see you wearing them. They look good, and it does make you stand out. And I talked about the quality of the network, the way that this network and the respect for the network is by getting the word out there and letting people know, and that's one very good way to do that. Now we have, I think, is David here yet? Yep. Grant Thornton have hosted us today. They've been very generous, and you've heard Ian talk. Ian thought you might be a bit bored with his voice, so he's invited the tax manager along, David Hawkes. So I imagine this could be a challenge for a tax manager to actually speak excitingly about almost anything, isn't he? Usually he'd read clause something or other of something or other, subsection whatever, and tell you what it means, but we'll wait to see, David.
We'll wait to see. No, thank you very much for that introduction. And firstly, perhaps by introduction, David Hawkes, I am actually a partner here with Grant Thornton, head up the tax practice, so unless, Ian, you've got some news for me, I don't believe I'm a manager in the team. I am a partner here. And on behalf of the partners, it is a pleasure to welcome you to the office, and I suppose thank the Industry Leaders Fund for choosing our office to host the function today. I think I'm not an alumni of the fund by any stretch at this point. But I think, I feel very privileged to have had the opportunity to sit in the room today with all of you to hear the diversity of thoughts and the diversity of views coming through. We at Grant Thornton have been running a program with our client base, which we call Six Box Discussions, where we go out as partners and at no charge to our clients. We'll spend 2 or 3 hours talking about their strategies, about their vision, about their plans for the future. And we categorise the things that come through. Really, it can be used as a business planning tool for our clients and contacts. And the top 2 things that come through for our clients, first one is strategy for growth, which perhaps as an accountant and tax, that's a little more comfortable to talk about. The second most popular topic or most common topic that comes through is attracting and retaining their key people, which comes down to culture. And so really for all of our clients, for all of the businesses in South Australia, the small and mid-sized businesses, people and culture is a critical element and it's front and centre. And to hear so much of the conversation today, I know that the next conversations I have around that Six-Box program, I've already got a greater deal of knowledge to share with those clients. I can't advise in that space. I am in tax and the legislation and the various sections I love talking through. But I have a lot more to add in that space and really, promote some further conversations for our clients. So, Ian spoke about our space here in our offices. We are very proud of them as a firm, and Justin was integral with that program as well. But when we designed the space, we really wanted to create a space for clients, for industry groups like the ILF to come along and use, and that's what this space is for. It's a collaboration space for industry and business leaders to come together, have conversations, and hopefully you all gain from that. So we thank you very much for coming today, and as I said, I'm probably now the one standing between you and a glass of wine, so I'll hand back now. Thank you.
Well, thank you, David. That was certainly not boring at all, as I intimated it could be. So we really appreciate it, and we do absolutely appreciate the support of Grant Thornton, and Ian in particular, I know, has put a lot of effort into getting this approved. He said it's a bunch of partners. It's not his decision. He's got to get partners to agree, so it's a collaborative effort. There are a couple of other things that I do want to do before we break for a drink, but one is, before I do that, a little bit of news from the Scholars Network, which you're all part of, and David Hart, who's on the committee, has agreed to say a few words about that.
Thanks, Jeff, and certainly thanks to Grant Thornton for sponsoring this event, and thanks to Christine and Jenny and the other speakers for presenting such, I guess, eye-opening information, very relevant for all of us, and certainly for us in a technical business. There's a lot of competition for staff and people with the booming defence industry, so it's very important that we do whatever we can to attract the right people and keep them. So there's certainly some really good takeaways for me from this session. And thanks also to Jeff and Susie for putting the effort into organising events like this. The Scholars and Alumni is really focused on trying to identify topics that would be of professional and personal benefit to the alumni, and then Susie and Jeff get on their bikes and get out and make it happen. So, there's a lot of effort that goes in behind the scenes. Now, I guess on the topic of other Scholars Network events coming up, there's a couple that Jeff's alerted me to advise everyone on. There's a breakfast coming up on the 20th of November at the Naval, Military and Air Force place on Hutt Street. Cindy Dennis from Light Force will be speaking. I think that's 7:15 a.m. on the 20th of November. It's a cost of $29.50. So if anyone's interested in that, there'll be information in the upcoming Scholars and Alumni Bulletin, which goes around every month or fortnight. So look at that. There's details of the phone number to book if you want to attend that. And then the upcoming cocktail function will be 4th of February next year. That'll be held at Macquarie Wealth Management on the corner of Pulteney and Perry Street. That'll be one of the first events spoken at by Jim Wally, who's the Chief Entrepreneur for the state and also the CEO of Nova Systems. So he'll have some really interesting insights as to what his role is going to entail, and probably some insights into how he built a business like Nova that's going from strength to strength. So keep your eyes on the bulletin coming up, and RSVP to Susie on any of these topics. So now enjoy the drinks and the food that's on. Sorry, let Jeff speak first.
We still have to thank our speakers properly. I think Christine was going to come and do that for us.
All right, so Jenny, we would like to very much thank you for the presentation and the amount of effort and work that you've put in. So please accept this small gift on our behalf. Please thank Jenny. Jerry, thank you very much for your presentation and also your contribution to our questions. Thank you, Jerry. Also to Eddie, thank you very much, Eddie, for your contribution and insights. It was really excellent. Thank you. Also to Kelly, who's slightly sleep deprived, but definitely gave us some wonderful insights and some really good knowledge as well. So thank you. Bruce, now we know what to do about workers working from home. We're all, but your insights and your information was really good. So thank you very much for travelling here and doing this. And to Deb, thank you very much for your presentation and your insights. It was excellent. Thank you very much. And to Chris, thank you very much for your insights and also for your contribution to the questions. We learned a lot from that. Thank you very much, Chris. And Ben, your experience with Team Gauge has been really important and quite relevant. Thank you very much for your presentation. And Ian, thank you once again for providing your insights and your contribution to the questions. And again, once again, thank you very much for hosting us here. Please thank Ian. And who else?
Just to save you thanking yourself, Christine. I think you'd all agree we've had a fabulous day today. I don't know whether your head aches, but mine's bulging with information. But it's a good headache. It's a good thing to have. We had a wonderful facilitator, great panellists, and Jenny, you did a fantastic job as the keynote speaker. So thank you very much indeed. Those little bags contain, Mary Hamilton was good enough to contribute the wines this afternoon from Hugh Hamilton Wines, and it contains a very interesting blend of Cabernet Sauvignon and Sauvignon Blanc. So they say it tastes nice. It'll be interesting to see what you all think. So that will conclude, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the Naval Military Club breakfast in November or the 4th of February for Jim Wally's address, and outside for drinks.